Hey everybody, Merry Christmas. I just want to real quick discuss JJK and its ending, and why I feel like a lot of the plot beats that some people feel weren't very effective or were left loose were actually a lot more like well-rounded and came to a better conclusion than I and a lot of people felt maybe when the manga initially ended. And one of the big ones was this potential man thing that happened, right? Gojo, earlier on in the manga, went out of his way to kind of gas up Megumi. He says that Megumi's technique has all this potential. Megumi could be a sorcerer on par, if not stronger than himself. And that's like major glaze, especially from the one and only Satoru Gojo, right? So a lot of people felt like that never went anywhere. We never see Megumi do anything, at least not to that degree, right? And I think that is kind of missing the point of what was going on there, right? Gojo directly mentions to Megumi that there was a fight between a Six Eyes Limitless user like himself and a Ten Shadows user like Megumi. And that fight ended in both people dying, both sorcerers dying. That has a lot of stake in the context of JJK, especially when you consider who Gojo lost a fight to, who Gojo died to. Like that conversation between Gojo and Megumi directly foreshadows Megumi's body being taken by Sukuna, along with stuff like Sukuna constantly himself mentioning Megumi's potential, being curious in what Megumi has to show, right? All of that was building up to the what I would consider one of the best fights in any manga, right? Like that, and I feel like just saying like, oh, but Megumi didn't do anything is kind of missing the point. And even still, like Megumi was one of the first students to use a domain expansion. I think that conversation within the frame of the manga happened like right before we see him use his imperfect domain. So I think that also was a part of it. But yeah, like the whole potential man thing was just build up for Sukuna v Gojo. Another thing I think that kind of got, I don't want to say lost in translation, was Gojo's return. A lot of us, me included, felt that Gojo was going to make a comeback. Maybe it would be temporary. Maybe it would just be like, I don't know, a couple seconds to change the tide of battle. But what we got instead was something I think is much more poignant and much more effective to the story that Gege was trying to tell. We got Gojo's pupil, like one of Gojo's pupils, using him very much in the same way that the sorcery world used Gojo his entire life. Granted, with Gojo's consent, and it was a dire situation. Yuta thought he had no other choice, but that was very much to kind of cement the message that like the way Yuta was going about things was not the way that things were going to be solved. Like Sukuna even says it himself. Yuta Okotsu, I didn't think you were capable of this. Sukuna is not the guy that you want to be taking props from, bruh. So, like, when Yuta lost, it was kind of reaffirming that idea. If you're gonna beat Sukuna, you need to do it your own way. That, I also think, ties really well into my next point. This is something that bothered me personally, and this was in like the last two chapters of the manga. After the fight with Sukuna is wrapped up, and we're kind of in this like borderline epilogue part of the story where everyone's just kind of discussing the battle and all of that. No one brings up Gojo. And reading it as it was coming out, it felt really awkward. It felt like, how is this major character that's had such a large impact on everybody in the story not being mentioned by anybody in the wake of their death? And it felt almost like borderline disrespectful, right? But looking back at it, especially with the context of that last conversation between Gojo and Yuji, that was his wish. He wanted a world that didn't need him. He wanted a world that could forget him, right? And it's like Yuji says, I could never forget you. And that feeds well into my last. This was my biggest gripe with the ending. And now it's almost spun around into like my favorite part of the ending, which is crazy. The random sorcerer guy, the random side quest that that our Team 7 goes on at the end of the story here, right? And it's like, why are we going to dedicate what I thought at the time were the last pages of JJK we're ever going to get to seeing them recruit some random bum? What is the point of that, right? And again, it feeds into that same lesson Gojo was trying to teach. Like here, Hikari, Yuta, Megumi, Yuji, all of those characters, maybe even Nobara, all of those characters were directly inspired and taught and brought under by Gojo in the hopes that they would become strong sorcerers, that he could create a world that didn't need him. And in that same vein, he taught Yuji the power of like giving people chances, learning from their mistakes. It's the same thing. It's the same hand Yuji tried extending to Sukuna. It's that same idea. Like we are more than the mistakes we make. We're not just tools, we're not just weapons. And that was the whole thing. They didn't need Gojo anymore. He was gone. But even though he's gone, the lessons that he had are still present in Yuji, Megumi, all his students. And that was the point of that last character, that guy whose name I don't even remember. It was to show us like Gojo's gone, but his ideals aren't. If you made it through all the way, through this fucking yap sesh, I just want to thank you. I love JJK personally, and I never disliked the ending, but over time I've just grown more and more satisfied with it, and especially after getting to see the epilogue, it really feels like I don't know, it's everything I wanted now. But again, thank you for listening to me just bullshit. Happy holidays, happy New Year's. God bless.